Hello everyone, and welcome back. It is MRL Racing Action here, a Thursday evening, afternoon, wherever you may be. Joining me for the Tier 2 racing is, of course, Unicorn for this season. Unicorn, how you doing today, my friend?
I have been anticipating this for a long time, so I am very excited, Striff. How are you?
Doing good. Extremely excited for this Australian Grand Prix, the first of 22 rounds in our season ahead. Let's take a look at the circuit. Of course, it is the Albert Park Street Circuit there in Melbourne, Australia. Very unique circuit. Very fast circuit, if I do say so myself. Of course, we have the calendar for this season. The new MRL Season 3 calendar. This is where we are going to see all of these racers visit. It's going to follow, of course, the calendar that would have been the official F1 2020 season calendar. So we have them in Australia for round number 1, and then we go through Bahrain, Vietnam, China, to the Netherlands for the Dutch GP, and then Spain, Monaco, Azerbaijan, Canada, France, and Austria for round 11. And then we'll take a look at the second half of the season. It's the British Grand Prix for round 12. Hungarian GP for round 13, Belgium, Italy, Singapore, Russia, Japan, the United States GP for round 19, of course, Mexico round 20, Brazil for the penultimate round, and to close things off, Abu Dhabi. Now, for Tier 2, we have a new roster of drivers for this season. Let's take a look. Over at Mercedes, we have Kai Bacchini lining up with Jay next to him. A2K and Yasko over at Ferrari. Gadwin and Liam for Red Bull this season. Sensorless and Skybits at McLaren. Jack S and Undertaker for Renault. Juicebox and Wisp taking up their seats at AlphaTauri, with Robbo and Itzamax for Racing Point. Maxim B and CJ partnering up this season over at Alfa Romeo, with Crampy and Max Inkster, the dynamic duo for Haas. And Domi and Squid rounding off the grid for Williams. Now, of course, as it is round 1, the standings are not yet populated, but this is, of course, a look at all of these drivers and how we are going to see these standings develop for this season. You can see all the drivers paired as we just saw them, and the constructors' standings on your left-hand side in that grid format, and we are just about ready to go racing here in Australia, I do believe, as it looks we are just waiting on another couple of drivers. But Unicorn, thoughts heading into this race?
Thoughts heading into this race? It's everyone's first opportunity to prove themselves in the new game with points at stake. That's what makes this one so exciting. You know, we've got a new handling model for everyone. They've had a couple weeks to get to grips with it now, so it being new is no longer really an excuse. Everyone's had the same amount of time to get their hands on it, you know, play around with it, get used to that and the overtake button. Of course, that's going to add a new dynamic to racing this season. So I think it's going to be an exciting one, but everyone now is pretty much on a level playing field. So this will be a chance finally to see how everyone stacks up against each other, and hopefully some very close racing and exciting stuff.
For sure. Of course, the weather settings for our league is dynamic. So, drivers could see some rain in either qualification or in the full race. And it is a 50% race distance. I believe 29 laps here in Melbourne, if I'm not mistaken. Quite the race distance. Tires can be quite interesting here as well.
Yeah, you got to think that the new turns 11 and 12 on the handling model, apparently, from what I've heard, is a little bit more difficult from last year to nail properly. So we'll see how that plays into it as well. Obviously, curbs and that have changed a little bit since the last game in terms of, you know, updates and that. But we'll have to see how people handle it today. I've definitely seen it through thrills and spills, shall we say, through those two corners in online lobbies, etc. So we'll have to have a look to see how these guys handle it today. But there we go. I think we've got all 20 drivers in the lobby now. Bang on time for us to get under racing here.
Excellent, excellent stuff. I cannot wait to get into our first qualification session of the season. I want to say it's been a very short break, but in reality it's been hit and miss with me. I've enjoyed it, but at the same time I've been commentating on weekends with the endurance races, so it's good to be back at work, if you will, with the Thursday nights. And it looks like the chat is very active as well this evening, which is great to see.
Feels like it's been a long time since points have been on the line in an F1 league race. So
a lot of exhibitions,
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And whilst they are fun, you know, they kind of lack the stakes when, you know, you've got 22 weeks worth of points that you need to collect. So at least we've got that dynamic back now. The wait will hopefully have been worth it.
Oh, it's just going to be so intense. This is, you know, it's full damage, strict corner cutting. It's going to be very interesting to see how these drivers fare with those kinds of conditions in a points on the line setting, like you said, because from what I understand, not a lot of these racers have had an opportunity to go into that kind of setting yet, or have really wanted to take the risk in that kind of setting yet. They just kind of wanted to get the cars up to pace, find the speed they need, and then come into this race and do really, you know, the best they can.
Yeah, for sure. And you gotta think that maybe it adds a little bit more pressure to the whole scenario. You know, the exhibition races, they're longer, so inherently a little bit more difficult in terms of actually how you're driving the game, but everyone's going to be on their best form. You know, they're going to put their best selves out there tonight. It's the first race. It's the most, you know, important in terms of putting your foot down and showing, you know, this is my pace for the new game. So it's definitely a lot up for grabs here this evening. And obviously, if you come first, you're instantly at the top of the Drivers' Championship. So
That's right. And Max Inkster, first driver out of the pit lane here today for Haas, the same squad we saw him drive for last season around in Tier 2. And he came into that full-time slot, and he did quite well in Tier 2, given the late entry into league racing. And now we're seeing him here in Tier 2 once again, making the cut, if you will. A lot of applicants we saw trying to get in for Season 3. And he did well to put himself ahead, and here we are, round 1. He's going to be your first driver here in Melbourne to set a flying lap once he crosses the start-finish.
yeah, and jumping on the back of that huge number of applicants, the community around this game so far has just been huge. Like, everyone's everywhere talking, you know. Obviously the lockdown and not the GPs, those are going to have helped draw people in to the F1 game, but you know, it's been just a brilliant uptake from everyone here so far.
Oh, most definitely. Max Inkster, he's coming down through into turn 3. He's got a little bit of traffic there in the Ferrari. Up into 7th now. He's got traffic. That's the AlphaTauri of Juicebox ahead of him. Juicebox pulling off to the inside, letting the Haas driver through. Very nice of the AlphaTauri driver. Very clean.
So a little bit further down, Maxime B in the Alfa Romeo. He's just set the fastest Sector 1 so far. most of the lap to go to see where he stacks up against the other drivers, but looking like a promising lap from him so far. Past the sector 2 as well for the Alfa Romeo there. 122 dead then. Max in the house with a first lap time we see. It's a Max with a 122.6, 6 tenths off the provisional pole. Frankie J with a 21.4 and Maxime B with a 20.7. So almost 2 seconds between first and fifth now. See Joss there with 121.5.
Just have to excuse me for 1 second here as I'm trying to straighten out the audio. It appears the game is a little bit higher than your voice there, Unicorn. I don't want that to be the case, so I'm just going to turn that down just a little bit. I hope all of you in the chat can now hear Mr. Unicorn nice and clear over the game.
In which case I'll find someone to comment on. So Robbo invalidates his lap. So he's come straight back into the pits, not happy with what he was putting out there. Only a few people trying it out on the medium tyres so far in the first bit of these sessions. 5 minutes down now. And we've got Extreme, Jack S and Gadwin on the softs.
A2K just jumps into P3 there. Sorry to interrupt you there, Unicorn. He crosses the line in the Ferrari, a 121.005. He's now ahead of the Mercedes, the funky JJ in P4.
Squid hops into P4 with a 121.2. It's still a little bit of disparity between these times so far, but it depends how much these guys have warmed up. I know a few of them earlier were doing a practice race, so those guys are definitely going to be feeling ready and warmed up, but obviously depending on time zones, it differs how much time you have to prepare just before the race for it, whereas everyone else is forced to practice a few days in advance.
The McLaren of Sensorless crossing the line, 121.950. He's into 8th position. He's the only McLaren in the points at the moment. Skybits, his teammate, now just getting out of the pit lane. And I'm very used to seeing Skybits in a McLaren. He was my teammate in PPR last season in the McLaren, so this is bringing back some nostalgia from when we took to this circuit last season. Oh, the tears. No, I'm only joking, but of course he will be setting a lap momentarily. Kai Bacchini as well. Wisp in the AlphaTauri currently flying through sector numero uno into turn 3. Not touching any of that inside curbing, none of that exit curb either, and just barely brushing that outside curb through 4.
Yeah, you'll notice as well, he's got 1 lap already logged on these soft tyres. He did invalidate his previous lap, I do believe, and I've seen a couple of people do that already. Obviously, the new game, new restrictions as to where you can and can't put the car, and there's been a couple of complaints about it, but obviously now people have had time to get to grips with it, so hopefully we won't see too many penalties here this evening, but I can't imagine we'll see them everyone go clean.
Yeah, penalties are going to be very interesting, especially at that 11-12 chicane, that high-speed chicane there in Sector 2. Can be very troublesome for these drivers. Wisp into P9 for AlphaTauri, a 121.940. One thing to talk about is, of course, the aspect of this season. MRL Season 3 is going to have not only the usual Constructors' Championships you would see in the division, but at the end of the season, we're going to be tallying the Constructors' points for both tiers combined as well. And as a result, you're going to see drivers from both tiers working together to come up with the absolute best setups they can to give themselves as a team the best possible opportunities in these races. So that's a very unique dynamic that we introduced this season that I think all of the drivers are excited about. The amount of chatter we've been seeing has been fantastic.
Yeah, like you said, it's just a new dynamic. If you've got 4 cars on a grid of 40 racing points, obviously 2 separate grids, but all the same tracks and stuff, you've got, 4 drivers who can all do well. Some could make mistakes, all could make mistakes, etc. So
Skybit's jumping into P9, excuse me. 121.688, and I believe Kai Bicini in the Mercedes now is going to be rounding to finish a lap as he comes around the final corner now. Pole position for the Mercedes, a 120.096. A very, very big lap from Kai Bicini. Wow. Very good stuff.
That is a huge improvement on what we had as the previous best. Jasko snuck in there with a 120.4, so he bumped down Liam, but then Kai Bicini with that extremely quick lap. That's absolutely brilliant from the Mercedes driver. Interestingly enough, Jack S now the only person on the leading order tires. He's just invalidated again there.
Struggling.
11-12.
Struggling there. We saw him earlier this week. He was in the practice session that we saw the drivers have after the preseason briefing, and he I believe it was a P5 result for him, P5 or P6. He was driving quite well, but that 11-12 chicane was catching everybody out throughout the qualifying, and there were quite a few spins in the race as well. So I'm really interested to see how some of these racers may have improved over these past few days since that practice session where we saw them last. Somewhat of a preseason testing opportunity, if you will. And it was a good race. It was a mixed tier race, so I can't really give you a perspective on pace, but Jack S was looking quite good in there, so who knows, maybe he'll be coming back from the back this race around. Another racer to look out for who was leading that practice session was Gadwin, who had come from the absolute rear of the grid in that one, so he went from back to front and was leading the race for well, as long as his tires would let him, really.
Apparently I'm still a little quad. I don't know if I can do anything on my end to improve it.
I will take a look on my end, most definitely, as quali is the time to do so. Alright, that should be good. You just give me a good old hello.
Oh, Crampy. I'll do you one better. Crampy appears to be facing the wrong way in what looks to be just on the exit of turn 12. It looks like he's been caught out a little bit there. Is there any way we can get a better look on what's happened? I think he's lost his right rear there, which would be a very interesting crash. I don't know quite how he's managed that. Yeah, he is indeed missing that right rear wheel. So Crampy, he's currently P7 with his best time. So he's got a fairly decent lap time in, but it's definitely not how you want to start your season, crashing in the first qualifying session.
Definitely not.
Hopefully it doesn't throw a spanner in the works for too many flying laps through there either. There was a yellow flag up through that section.
Sensorless P9 McLaren. This grid is looking quite good here. As you can see, the times there, the gap to leader at the moment. With the DRS opportunities on this circuit. And, well, just looking at the times right now, I think this is going to be a very interesting race, as not all of these racers have set their final laps just yet.
Oh, big slide for Jasko coming out of turn 14, I believe. He was on for an excellent lap as well. I think it would have been in P2 at the least, if not put him up into pole. But he's not going to improve this time round. He's got time for another if he's got the fuel on board.
I don't believe he's going to be going for another one there. He has no battery engaged at the moment. Another driver who appears to be struggling, and I know hasn't had a lot of opportunity to get that many laps in, is Jay over at Mercedes. Currently sat in P10. He was, of course, runner-up last season round in Tier 2 after being very, very closely beaten out by Liam, who is currently in P2 for Red Bull this season. And I do believe Jay is getting set to go again there. You can see how he carefully gets set to go for these laps. Very important you get the car set up the way you like it for the optimal exit down that pit straight there.
So Jack S right now is the only person yet to have set a lap time. We saw him struggling a little bit on the mediums earlier in the session. Now he's on a flyer, and it will be his last here in the Renault. So he really has to nail it. He's invalidated his previous lap. I didn't see where, but we saw him invalidate through turn 12 earlier, and it is a fine line as to how much curb you can take through that corner. But like you said, it's extremely fast, so you don't want to brake too much, because otherwise you're going to lose a good chunk of time in just a couple of turns. So it's a difficult one to get just right, but it's going to separate the grid here this evening.
Jay coming through the last few turns now, looking to improve on the P10. Trying to get closer to his teammate there in Kai Bacchini, who's currently on pole position. He does improve by 0.2 into P9. Not that much of a jump for the Mercedes. A good enough improvement to move him a position, but then he gets pushed back into P10 once again, as everybody is starting to come through and finish out their laps.
Yeah, that one was Jack. Put him into P6, finally getting a valid lap time in, 1:21 dead. Just behind A2K and the Ferrari there.
I can only imagine what he's saying right now in the cockpit of that Renault after his first, well, I do believe first 2 attempts at getting a lap together here in Albert Park.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't happy with those mediums, so a bit of time potentially wasted there for him, but at least he knows now that, you know, the mediums aren't for him in qualifying, and he's got a hand on their sort of pace and usability around this track. So he's going to have that knowledge going into the race. Maybe he could have gone a little bit faster in qualifying. He's been knocked down to P7 now. I believe that was Maxime B. No, P4 right now.
On board with Extreme 1409 now. He's currently in P19. He is in a reserve role today. As he comes down through the chicane, he unfortunately takes just a little bit too much of that curb and invalidates his lap, so I do believe he will remain in P19. Very unfortunate for him. Gadwin is into P5, excuse me, as I didn't notice, but he is doing very well to get close to his teammate in Liam, and they are looking quite competitive with that Honda power at the moment, looking to perhaps compete with Mercedes and Ferrari, Yasko and A2K in the mix there as well.
See Joss, he's on a flying lap, probably one of the highest up people to be doing so. His sector one's nearly identical to what he'd done previously here around Albert Park. He is running low fuel. You can see the warning light in the bottom right flashing there. So he's running the car as light as possible. Session is now over. So this is everyone's final attempt, provided they are already on a flying lap. A purple Sector 2 for the Alfa Romeo then. He keeps it valid through turns 11 and 12, using a lot of curb on the exit there to gain maximum exit speed. Very clean through the right-handers as he approaches the final couple of corners here in the Alfa Romeo. He set a purple Sector 2. Can he use this to his advantage as he rounds the final corner here? DRS pops open and he is going to set a 120.9, puts in P7, just ahead of A2K there.
So Alphas 2 and 7 respectively. Maxim B there on the front row for the time being. Yasko into the pit lane. He will not be improving. Sensorless on an invalidated lap right now, currently having struggles getting into the pit lane, is the young McLaren. And I do believe we are looking at our final grid at the moment. Kai Bacchini on pole position here in Tier 2 for the opening round of Season 3 action for MRL. Maxim on the front row next to him, with Liam in third, Squid P4, Yasko P5, Skybits in P6 for McLaren, pushing Gadwin further back. Gadwin into 7th, CJ 8th, A2K in 9th, Jack S rounding off your top 10 for Renault. Crampy for Haas in P11, Jay in 12th, Sensorless in 13th with Max Inkster 14th, the other Haas driver. Juicebox in 15th for AlphaTauri, Robbo and Itamax 16th and 17th respectively for Racing Point, with Wisp in 18th position, Extreme the other Renault in 19th, and Mo in 10, another reserve driver here today, taking up the rear of the grid for Williams in P20.
So Kai Bacchini, I didn't actually notice, but he did improve on his time. He's the only person to have gone sub 120 here this evening, which is an incredibly impressive feat for the first race of the season here. 0.23 tenths ahead of his nearest rival in Maxime B there.
Very quick. Very, very quick. Yes, Kai Bacchini, once again, on pole position. Maxim in second, Liam third, Squid in fourth, Yasko fifth, Skybit sixth, Gadwin in seventh, CJ in eighth, A2K in ninth, with Jack S rounding off your top 10. For the bottom half of the grid, it is Crampy, Jay, Sensorless, Max Inkster, Juicebox, Robbo, Itamax, as well as... I can't remember for the life of me. My short-term memory loss not working out to my favor.
Robbo... Wisp, Extreme, Moen. The bottom three.
Extreme, Moen. There we go. For all of you in the chat, any predictions ahead of this race?
This is the toughest one to predict for, because you have nothing to base it on at all. You've only got the qualifying to go from. So, Hennes doesn't want to jinx it. But yeah, all we've got is that qualifying session, really. This is the first time we've seen everyone in the league setting for this game, let alone this season. So, yeah, not a lot to base any sort of predictions on. So, definitely the toughest one. If you're a betting man, this is the worst race to be doing so on.
For all of you that are new tuning into MRL Action, make sure you hit that follow button, as we are live every Thursday with the racing action, and I can guarantee you that at the very least for the next 22 weeks, as this is the first round of 22 for Season 3. And of course, we have another race after this one at 5:15 p.m. CDT / 9:15 p.m. BST. It's Tier 1 racing then, and I will be commentating that with Mr. Mikow as always, all the way from Australia. Now you can see the predicted pit stop strategy there on screen. Unicorn, that 9 to 11 on the soft compound tire, and then switching on to those hards to go to the end. That soft hard one-stop strategy, and then there's also that possible soft medium. I've seen the soft medium happen in the practice session. I don't know how the tires were feeling for the drivers at the end, but you can see there on the grid, not only has Max Inkster and Juicebox come together, disqualifying them from the formation, but you see there's a good chunk of variety in that back 10 on the different tire compositions.
Yeah, and going back to that soft medium strategy, it is possible. I think it was Shenjie, obviously not in the tier 2 grid, but he did do it, he did pull it off, and his tyres by the end of it, very, very high amounts of wear. He said the pace was still there, but you do put yourself at risk of a puncture. So it's definitely risk versus reward. It is probably the quicker strategy if you've got the tyre management for it, but at the same time, regardless of your tyre management skills, you do put yourself at risk of a puncture towards the end of the race, at least. In the last 4 or 5 laps, I would reckon.
Any safety car predictions in the chat? How about yourself, Unicorn? Any ideas on safety car here? It is very likely that we could see a safety car. It is Albert Park. There isn't a lot of areas where cars can kind of just get stashed away. It's almost guaranteed the cars need to be removed from circuit, so that could be a possibility. As all of the cars now are approaching the grid ahead of this first lights out race start. It is MRL Season 3 action, Tier 2 racing for round 1. Unicorn, care to take us through the start of this race, my friend?
I would love to here as we get ready for the grid to form up. There we go, everyone's loaded in. The lights get ready. There they are, all 5 of them lit and red, and away we go, although no one appears to be moving. There we go. So a huge delay with the start of this race. Skybits and Gadwin getting a very good start. Jasko dropping down the order. The Ferrari's gone wide through turn 1. There's a Jasko's down 9 places from the start. Gadwin's up 2. And as he's come together, the Renault of Jack is just about survived. He's come off the track. There's also, I believe that's Wisp there in the fray, as well as Funky J in the Mercedes there. Jasko's DNF'd. He's out. Oh, he's been disqualified, I think. Yeah, he has. And Crampy's down 8 places after that collision at the start there. A few people have benefited from this, though. Moen's up 6 places. Itzanak's up 5. And there's Wisp. He's retired from the session. I don't know whether that was terminal damage, but we've already seen a VSC here. I don't know if it was terminal damage. It looks like Extreme and Robbo were affected as well in whatever caused Wisp there to DNF. But up the front, Kai Bacchini has held on to first place. Maxime B and Liam, they're both still in the podium spots as well. Squid retains 4th. Then we have the changes. Gadwin, he's up from 7th in 5th. Skybits retains 6th place. A2K 9th to 7th after his teammates' misfortune. Sejos in 8th. Sensorless up 4 into 9. And Juicebox 5 places up into the top 10 there. Then he's followed by Jack, S, Itzamax, Max, Moen, Mikey J, Extreme, Robo, and Crampy are the current runners. As the VSC ends and we get back underway with racing here, as we see Funky J and Robbo coming into the pits. I'm assuming Crampy's going to do the same as well. He is.
So we're getting some clarification there. It appears Zasko's game crashed, and unfortunately, as a result, wasn't able to get that car back under control. There was some kind of issue there between himself and the game, so he's unfortunately out of this one here. Wisp DNFing from this race. Not how he wanted to begin this season, unfortunately. Not going to be happy is the AlphaTauri driver, that is for sure. Now, a multitude of penalties getting handed down here in Albert Park. All of these drivers, of course, that is, as we said, the first league race of the season where all of these drivers have a full feeling for that full fuel load and these strict corner cutting and full damage conditions for which this league is ran. So we're going to see some adjustments over the first few races, that's for sure. And, well, welcome to Season 3. That's all I've got to say, as we have the racing point of Itzamax very carefully avoiding Juicebox's rear in this fight for P11, as there isn't too much action going on up at the front right now. Liam, less than a second behind Maxim. We've seen them battle before throughout the entirety of Season 2.
And Alpha's just pointed out in the chat, but Kai Vicini has picked up a drive-through penalty. I'm not quite sure what he got it for, but he's picked one up nonetheless, so he's going to have to serve that here, and that's going to put his race in huge jeopardy for the Mercedes. He's had such a strong start here to the season, and now with that drive-through, he's going to drop back immensely, given that the grid is also tight.
Jack S in the Renault right now, hunting down the McLaren as if we would have had it any other way. Coming in to turns 11, 12, that infamous chicane. Is Jack S going to have the DRS and be close enough to perhaps make an overtake here on the McLaren? Sticks with him for now. Of course, he'll have DRS once again coming down that pit straight into turn 1. Meanwhile,
oh, Leon's just spun out of the final corner. I hate to interrupt, but he's just lost his front wing, and as he's going to struggle to rejoin here. He's having a hard time rotating that car as well, because there's so little space between the racing line and the wall.
Very unfortunate. He was in a solid running position. Now he has dropped a massive amount, and those tires have taken a beating as a result. I'm sure him trying to get that car turned around in such a tight position. Meanwhile, Jack S into 9th as a result, still hunting down Sensorless.
And what a crazy start it's been here to this Australian Grand Prix.
These first few laps, of course, the first lap, always so much action, and then I always find in these races the few laps following, you know, laps 3, 4, 5, 6, people are kind of finding their groove, getting familiar, and then the charging begins, and you see certain things start to develop on the grid. For example, A2K right now has caught up with Skybits. Skybits in 5th position on the defensive from the Scuderia Ferrari driver.
The yellow flag popped up briefly there in Sector 3, but I don't see what caused it. So Kai Vicini now serving, I would assume, that drive-through penalty. Mercedes, where is he going to come out? Going to be no higher than 11th, but I think he's going to lose the positions to the Williams and the Racing Point. Oh no, Max and Itzamax are coming into the pits.
Squid and Maxim wheel to wheel in turn 3, going into 4th now. That's Maxim on the outside, brushing with the Williams. Squid is into the lead of this race for the moment. Maxim, the Canadian driver, going to be looking to hunt him down to retake the position, as Gadwin is currently just shy of 2 seconds away from the front runners.
Yeah, they got a bit of breathing room here to battle it out. So if Maxime wants to go back for the position, he's definitely got the time buffer behind him that he needs. And they no longer have Kai Vicini. He was so much faster in qualifying, but now he's got, you know, 8 or 9 cars between the pair of them that he's got to fight through. But if he's got that pace and he can use it, then as he picks up a 3-second time penalty in turn 11 there, so already we're seeing penalties being picked up through those 2 corners.
CJ really looking for a piece of the McLaren and Skybits right now as they round the final turn onto the pit straight. DRS and overtake in full swing for that Alfa Romeo. He has a huge carry of speed. Down the inside he goes. That's going to be Skybits dropping into 5th ahead of turn 1. Is going to be able to make a switchback. He has a very nice entry into turn 2 and beautiful switchback from the McLaren as they head down through into turn 3. CJ once again on the inside. He is not going down without a fight here. Skybits and him wheel to wheel. This is beautiful racing into turn 4. Still wheel to wheel. The Ferrari of A2K is looking to try and get in on the mix, and CJ is out in front of Skybits for now, as the Ferrari has a beautiful, beautiful view of all of this action. This fighting is allowing him to just get so close to this fight.
I've been watching this all from A2K's perspective. He was a little bit far back at the start of the start-finish straight, but as soon as they started squabbling through turns 1 and 2, you could just see him biding his time, getting closer, and then that second DRS straight just dragged him right up into the fight. I thought he was going to try and make a move into turn 3, but he decided against it. Probably for the better, as they went side by side through turn 4. Skybit's a little bit shaky on the exit there, but now he's just got to make sure he doesn't lose too much time to A2K behind him if he wants to try and go for the position back on Sejos. But Sejos does seem to be a little bit smoother on exit. Gadwin's in the pits. He's coming in for a set of hards a little bit earlier than you might expect. A2K as well. He's gone for the hards as well.
Skybit struggling on the exit of turn 2 there. He took a little bit too much of that inside curbing. He almost lost the car, but he did a very good job of catching it. He's still fighting very hard for this podium running position in CJ right now. But CJ has started to pull away. CJ is showing great pace on those soft compound tires, but as you said, drivers here beginning to switch onto some hard compound tires. We see Extreme, Gadwin, A2K all making the switch to those hard compound tires. You can see Itzamax and Max Singster also on hards, Robbo as well. So drivers starting to get comfortable on those hard compound tires, as we have Sensorless starting to catch up with his teammate on the medium compound tires. Jack S following behind him carefully with the softs as well. So could be that those softs starting to drop off. Jack S though could be defying the odds. Who knows, Unicorn? What do you think?
Yeah, I think what we are seeing is those softs start to drop off. It would explain the pit stops of Gadwin and A2K, and it would also explain why Sensorless here is closing on his teammate, who does seem to be sliding as we see Skybits there hop into the pits. I'm not surprised, to be honest. He seems to be suffering a lot more than Djos up in third there. Squid and Maxime B as well. They're both yet to pit. If everyone else is struggling for grip on the softs, it's not going to be too long until we see them come in. But both of them, they haven't really fought each other. We did see Squid go past Maxime B a few laps ago, but they didn't really fight it out. Squid does seem to have an extortionate amount of pace at the moment at the end of the soft stint.
Has come out just ahead of A2K on his pit stop as well, which means that A2K, in his effort to perhaps undercut the McLaren, has not worked, and he has still fallen out behind the McLaren, although he is quite close to the McLaren, and his tires are going to have a little bit more heat in them than Skybits at the moment. Good opportunity for him to make up some significant pace here, as Max Singster takes a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings. A lot of these racers taking penalties here as they're getting familiar with the new model in F1 2020.
Yeah, A2K, he's in DRS range, which is going to benefit him coming out of turn 12, but he is on those older hards, and they've both pitted before the laps 9 through 11 pit window that we were maybe expecting for the soft hard strategy.
Unicorn, as Liam extremely close to the rear of that Racing Point gearbox at the moment in that Red Bull. He's going to be looking for a move, I can only assume, out of turn 12 here, coming down through sector 2.
Meanwhile, Kai Bacchini back into 6th position. Obviously he started pole, but after a drive-through penalty, dropped him to around 10th position. Now back up to 6th, but he is also on softs and is yet to pit. Meanwhile, the front runners, and Maxime B and Squid, have gone yet another lap here without pitting.
There goes Liam.
Time?
Up the inside into turn 1 is the Red Bull driver. Very clean entry and exit for both drivers, albeit Liam is out in front of Robbo for now. Meanwhile, Gadwin looking to catch up with Extreme in the Renault ahead. Less than half a second is the current gap. Meanwhile, Extreme catching up to Moen in front as a train is beginning to form. You can see CJ there. The times are going to be ticking down for him as he's on those medium compound tires. Gadwin along the outside of Extreme into turn 13. Very nicely done from the Red Bull. We'll see if Extreme is able to do anything about it heading down into turn 1. Now you can see Squid and Maxim have all jumped into the pit lane, as has Kai Bacchini. Where are they going to drop out? Maxim is into 5th position, right ahead of Moen.
Someone who didn't pit, Jack S. He's the only person still out there on softs, and he's definitely going to be feeling the tyre degradation. If he's not, then he is a tyre management god, because those things are really going to be struggling right now. But the game does think that you could go to lap 11 on them. So,
it looks like we've had an exchange. That's Gadwin getting out in front of the Williams. That's Moen dropping into 7th position. Meanwhile, take note, Kai Bacchini, who was on pole position and leading this race until an unfortunate drive-through penalty saw him drop out of the lead, has now come out on to hard compound tires with a fresh wing change. He is in 13th at the moment with 19 laps to go. It is time for him to go to work and put the pedal to the metal, if you will, and try to get that race win back that was so clearly in his grasp after a clear qualifying, as CJ up the inside of Moen into turn 13. It caught me off guard. I'm sure it did the Williams as well. What a beautiful overtake there from the Alfa Romeo. Wow, my jaw certainly dropped for that.
And not far behind them either. Skybits now looking at Extreme down the start finish straight. He's got DRS. Here he goes up the inside of the Renault into turn 1. It looks like he's got the move done. He has, but the Renault is right on his bumper. Although the McLaren gets DRS once more for the second DRS straight there, so he does get to pull a little bit of a gap. And once more, we've got A2K just lurking in the background in the Ferrari, just looking to see if there's any opening for him as the cars in front of him battle. It seems to be a little bit of a trait of his so far in this race to just watch.
I swear that's Ted Kravitz there. Nothing was doing in the pit lane, so he jumped into a Ferrari. You see him getting all of the angles. Very nice. Of course, he'd rather not be seeing the angles, and he'd rather be seeing nobody, as I'm sure he's going to be looking to get past these racers ahead of him. At the moment is A2K.
Ooh, Extreme out of turn 12, very wobbly, and that's one of the positions that A2K would have wanted, and it's been handed to him on a silver platter, as he now is back behind Skybits. We saw them just behind one another earlier, and now that gap has been rekindled, and Skybits on all sorts of grass out of exit. He doesn't have DRS on Moen in front of him, whereas A2K does have the DRS, so he's going to be able to use that to close the gap to the McLaren ahead, who still looks a bit sideways. And there's a yellow flag. That's a Mercedes. That's Kai Bacchini out of turn 1. He's been hit by the Max.
What a terrible crash, and that is most definitely a safety car here in Albert Park, as Kai Bacchini, who seemingly spun coming out of the final turn here, trying to get back on the circuit. I think he was just trying to get out of the way there.
He spun in a very awkward spot. Like I was saying earlier, when I think it was Liam who crashed coming out of turn 1. But Liam, after he span, he ended up on the right-hand side of the track, which obviously isn't where the racing line is, so he was able to turn around no problem, whereas Kai Bacchini was sat facing the pit wall, and his car was just parked on that racing line. Obviously, he wants to get off it as fast as possible, but I just don't think he anticipated Max coming quite so quickly.
And Sensorless has made a massive error here, Unicorn, as you see Jack S jumping
Juicebox
into the
hasn't
pit
done it
lane.
either.
Juicebox hasn't gone in either. That is a monumental mistake, in my opinion, as Jack S
This is
has
hard,
been awarded with a very, very good pit stop here onto the medium compound tires. I do believe this is similar to what I saw him do in the practice session earlier this week. He's going for that one-stop soft medium strategy. He went long on those softs, got himself into P2. He was gifted this safety car. Now he's going to drop out in 8th position here behind the Ferrari of A2K, and there are a lot of drivers ahead of him on much older tires, with the exception of course, Squid and Maxim, who are on those 3-lap old mediums. But at the very least, Jack S, 3-lap newer tires than them, and he has been quite quick here in Australia. So, looking like a possible podium for the Renault. But it is, of course, extremely unfortunate for the Racing Point in It's a Max, who has now DNF'd as a result of the collision with Kai Vicini. Of course, the stewards will be able to review that post-race, and penalties will be awarded if necessary, as it's not good to jump to any conclusions. Both perspectives will be required. Meanwhile, your current running order is Sensorless, Juicebox, Squid, Maxim, and Gadwin rounding off your top 5 here. Take a look at the pit stops on screen here under safety car conditions. You can see everybody has already made a stop, with the exception of your front 2 drivers. That is Sensorless and Juicebox. On top of that, fastest lap in the race at the moment is currently held by Maxim, a 124.541, which is a nice little point to have in his pocket for sure.
Yeah, Renault are actually looking quite strong in terms of the points they might be able to score here, as well as McLaren. Obviously, Sensorless could have pitted there for either hards or mediums. It's possible to go to the end now on mediums, but definitely easier to do so on the hards. But Jack S and Extreme, both on fresh mediums after the safety car, currently sitting in 8th and 12th. Renault could be in for a strong race if this strategy pans out for them. Obviously, if we see another safety car later in the race, Juicebox now coming into the pits now. That's seriously mistimed for the AlphaTauri driver.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what the strategy call was there from the team, but he's now allowed that grid to bunch up a lot. He's gone into the pits a second lap round, and now he's dropped into 13th position, which is, well, pretty well the entire grid down.
The only thing you could say in his defense is that maybe he just wanted that one extra lap. Obviously, getting the mediums to the end now is a lot easier than it would have been one lap prior, but getting to the end anyway is a difficult task, so leaving it a lap later maybe gives him a little bit of an advantage over his competitors who pitted one lap prior. Obviously, he's got a little bit of traffic in front of him now, but he's behind Funky J and Extreme, both one lap old mediums, so if those tyres do become a problem towards the end of the race, he's going to have that slight one lap advantage on him at the moment. Whereas Sensorless, I'm sure Juicebox's decision there has put shivers up his spine, because he is now ahead of Squid and Maxime B, the 2 leaders of the race prior to the pit window. They're both very fast around here. We've already seen that. They're on 4-lap old mediums compared to Sensorless's 13-lap old mediums. His tyres have got 2 to 4 laps, I reckon.
The amount of difference in tires on the grid at the moment is just wild, and it's going to make for some very interesting racing when things get down to it. We're just approaching the halfway point of this race now, as the safety car has not yet decided to come in. I do believe we're going to be going around the grid one more time, at which point Sensorless, leading this grid right now, will be the safety car and will control the pace of the grid. But it is very curious as to why the car is not coming in, as I do believe Kai Vicini now very close to the rear of the grid. We have 3 cars out of this race, 17 remaining, and it is going to be a full race restart here heading into lap 16. Kai Vicini will be with the grid in a moment, and this race has just gone absolutely wild. Kai Vicini now at the rear of the grid, complete opposite as to where he started.
Yeah, and Mikhail has just made a very good point in chat, but I've just confirmed in the race director. He is indeed correct when he says that both Sensorless and Juicebox both started this race on the medium compound tyres. So both of them have to switch to something different prior to the end of this race. So Juicebox, when I said that he might have been preserving those mediums for one lap order, that is definitely not the case because he needs to pit for softs before the end, or hards if that's the way he wishes to go. So whether the mediums were a mistake on his behalf, not quite sure, but Sensorless as well. Maybe he's going for the medium-soft strategy.
The reverse medium-soft one-stop. Very, very big brain strategy possibility coming out of the McLaren camp today. But of course, Juicebox, I can't see him going for that hard compound tire. I definitely see it having to be the soft compound tire. And as race control has now indicated, the safety car will be coming in this lap. We're going to jump on board with Sensorless as he works and does what he can to slow down and pace this grid ahead of a restart.
Now what would happen if he just jumped into the pits here? How confused would Squid be in that Williams behind him? He might not know how old those tyres are.
That would be extremely confusing. Going to be a very interesting strategy here out of the McLaren camp. Could catch quite a few drivers off guard. Squid in that Williams would have to put the pedal to the metal very quickly, but I do think Sensorless may need to slow down things a little bit more. Hopefully not too many of these drivers get brake checked or anything in that sense here, as the safety car has entered the pit lane. That is Sensorless away. Squid full throttle now as well. Crampy has taken a penalty, and the front three drivers are now away through turn one.
Skybit's a very good start under the safety car, but he's not quite been able to make the move past the Williams of Moen there. Obviously the safety car bunching everything up, so battles can be reignited. Sensorless does look to be struggling on those old mediums though, whereas Squid behind him is just carrying all the speed.
No, Jay and Extreme having a battle. Jay extremely close to the rear of the Haas and Max Singster. Extreme in 12th. Liam is there as well. And a lot of battling as Jay, wheel to wheel with Max Singster, gets out ahead with a very clean overtake.
Sensorless picks up a penalty through turn 11.
Skybits finally gets out in front of the Williams. Moen, who has dropped to P9 now and is going to be under serious threat from the Mercedes of Jay at his rear. Jay, very hungry for points on his debut, goes up the inside. Is he going to be able to get the move done? He goes out ahead, gets through into 9th position. Meanwhile, Moen dealing with a little Haas named Max Inkster, into 10th position I go. And Liam is there, not letting anything get out ahead of him. In Extreme, it's just Moen in that Williams getting absolutely mugged. Liam looks at the inside of Max Inkster into turn 1. Extreme is now the de facto A2K with the beautiful shot coming into turn 3. Liam on the outside. Is he going to get the move around Max Inkster on the inside switchback into turn 4? Gets out into 10th position. This is beautiful racing here. Meanwhile, there's a battle cooking at the front. Maxim, 7-lap-old mediums, catching up with Sensorless. Sensorless, 16 laps on those tires he's running with right now. He has got to be feeling a loss of traction. And you can see it in the clock. It is just ticking down for this McLaren as Maxim on the outside into turn 11. Sensorless concedes. Maxim into 2nd position. Very nicely done. And very clean by both drivers.
Sensorless has been so slow since the restart. Those tyres, he needs to get off them as soon as he can. Obviously, it's going to be softs, I would think. And that's another Mercedes. That's Kai Bacchini out of the race. Out of turn 12. What a huge, huge disappointment for the Mercedes. It just looks like a yellow flag. No need for a full course caution. DRS is re-enabled then, but Maxime B will not have it on Squid. Squid able to sneak past the slow McLaren of Sensorless before Maxime B, and was able to just use that 20-30 seconds or so of clear air to just blast away from the Alfa Romeo, who got stuck behind the McLaren. Meanwhile, Gadwin now looking to challenge Senseless. Those old tyres are really not helping the McLaren, not doing him any favours whatsoever. Meanwhile, Gadwin on hards that should take him to the end of the race.
It'd be very difficult for Gadwin here, Unicorn, to keep up with the very, very quick Renault behind him. Jack S into 5th position is going to be looking to hunt down that podium as we had predicted. He is very quick on those fresher medium compound tires right now. CJ is also with him, and meanwhile A2K and Skybits have formed somewhat of a train behind Gadwin. And Jay is starting to join that party soon as well. So things are heating up in this midfield as Squid is currently 1.6 ahead of P2, with Maxim pulling away from the very old medium tire running Sensorless, and that is Jack S up the inside of Gadwin. They went wide, and they have had a big issue there. Jack S has dropped a massive amount of position. Gadwin is going into the pit lane, and he is just not having it today with that. Very, very interesting move there, and that has just allowed Skybits and A2K with CJ to move into some serious positions here. CJ into 3rd. It is now a 2-3 for Alfa Romeo in the running at the moment. A2K, the Scuderia Ferrari, in 4th position, and Jay is having a look at the McLaren. And as he always does, coming in right when we need to have some kind of spectacular move, he comes in, peeks his head through, and brings the attention through Liam. Oh, and Liam is into the wall! Holy cow, he is out of this race. He comes together with Jack S, locks wheels with him. Unfortunately, he got hooked, and there it is. Yeah, the safety car is out.
Now, this is an interesting one. This is a perfect opportunity to go onto the softs, but you're going to lose positions doing so. So maybe for those on the old tires,
you know who's going to be. You know who's going to be really upset about this? Our good old sensorless McLaren here. He pit the lap ahead of the safety car. It has got to be a bad mood over at McLaren, with the exception of course, Skybits, who is running in 5th position for the squad. But that is just not what you want to see for sensorless. So he is not going to be pleased.
A huge number of cars coming into the pits, though, so this is going to be very beneficial for those who think they can go to the end. Although it doesn't look like there's many. Meanwhile, Jack S, he's out in 1st. He's going on the end with these mediums. Maybe
let's have a see.
Not cool.
Let's have a see where sensorless comes out here.
He really needs to put his foot down. He really might nail this, actually. Here he comes. Can he beat his teammate Skybits out of the pit lane? No, he can't. He's going to be sick. That's not a bad place for him, though.
Now, something that, of course, we've been putting some emphasis on here ahead of Season 3 is some teamwork. As Sensorless is on the preferred strategy at the moment. Or, excuse me, Skybits is on the preferred strategy at the moment, but Sensorless was leading this race earlier. Do we see any kind of team play come across, or is it just simply the fastest car gets it? It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of team play comes here ahead of this restart. The grid has completely flipped as far as tire strategy twice now here in this race. We've only had 5 retirements out of the 20 drivers that began. Of course, one of them an unfortunate DSQ due to
You've spoken
issues.
Too soon.
Oh, and Moen has now exited the running. Very, very unfortunate.
We were just saying how this safety car would be annoying for Sensorless, but I think it's actually benefited him quite a bit, because you can see in the likes of Sejos there, who's dropped down quite a few positions, I believe, and that's purely because he's probably been double stacked because of this soft strategy to the end. Everyone wants to go to softs to the end now. Whereas Sensorless, he didn't have to get double stacked because, of course, he didn't go into the pit lane behind his teammate Skybits. So for Sejos, who was, I believe, 3rd, obviously he came into the pits behind his teammate Maxime B, who is in 2nd, and that means he's been dropped because he was double stacked in the pit lane. So actually, it's worked out quite well for Sensorless and the McLaren.
Extreme has jumped into the pit lane himself now, thinking it's time to get off of these mediums. It looks like Jack S has been the one to stay out for the Renault camp, as this car is going to be going around one more time here in Albert Park.
Oh, Squid's just received 5 seconds penalties.
Very unfortunate. It's very important these drivers give one another space, of course, during the safety car running. The lightest tap or exceeding of limits or corner cut can lead to a multitude of penalties that these drivers definitely don't want, as when the safety car restarts, the times are all separated by very little margins, whereas normally when you finish the race you have a little bit more of play, so when you have those penalties perhaps you can pull that gap. But when you have a restart that pulls everyone together, those penalties are going to completely wrench this grid all over the place come the checkered flag.
Both Squid and Maxime B were penalty free up until that point. Obviously that means Maxime B is still penalty free. Jack S certainly isn't penalty free. I'd be very surprised to see him win this race. Looking at this sheet here, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 3-second time penalties, which is 12 seconds, and then 2 5-second time penalties. So I believe, if that's correct, he's got 22 seconds of penalties to his name.
Wow. Very, very unfortunate. Safety car is coming in this lap, and before it does, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who's tuning into the race. We greatly appreciate all of your support. Of course, if you're new, we do this every Thursday. 2 races. The Tier 1 action is yet to come, but it will be in just 45 minutes time when that stream begins. Of course, please, if you're enjoying the race, hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. My name is Strifium. Joining me is Unicorn. And Jack S, now your race leader at the moment on the 8-lap old mediums, is going to be slowing down this grid and pacing things ahead of the second safety car restart of round 1, Tier 2 MRL action. Take us away, Unicorn.
I will get out of the race director as we get ready. Squid already at the side. J Phoenix have a 3-second time penalty already. Squid around the outside, looking for it as he rear ends Jack through turn 1 there. That's led Skybits. He's passed Maxime B through the first couple of corners. Squid now is past the Renault. Are we going to see the same thing as Maxime B dives up the inside of the McLaren? Again, we're seeing a slow car at the start of the restart cause a few problems, but Squid is now into second. I think he's run wide there. He's now side by side with Maxime B. They're both rivals as they go through. Maxime B just comes ahead there, but Jack S somehow managing to squeeze back in front after all this chaos. Further down the grid, we've got the Alpha Tauri of Juicebox. He's looking at the inside. He's spun after contact with the McLaren. He's okay. He's not in the wall or anything. But where's Squid? Squid's dropped down to 6th. He's dropping fast. The McLaren is sensorless. Looks like he's going to take that position. Through turns 11 and 12, Squid just retains 6th place there. But Maxime B now up into 2nd place, looking a bit clear, and Jack S in front of him has a huge, huge selection of penalties. So, and he's on old mediums as well. So Maxime B here looking very strong after 1 lap out of the safety car restart. Juicebox is way down now, 4.3 seconds behind Crampy after that spin.
What a restart. It's Skybits hunting down A2K on the inside into turn 1. Is he going to be able to make the move here? They're wheel to wheel coming through the turn. Skybits on the inside gets the move done for now. Is A2K going to be able to make any kind of switchback? Of course, no DRS is enabled at the moment. Squid, however, looking at the inside of the Ferrari now. A2K weaving, looking to find a line. The Williams and him wheel to wheel through turn 3. That's Squid on the inside of the Ferrari, but a lot of traction in that Ferrari right now. They're wheel to wheel into turn 5. Squid gets out ahead, and Sensorless is looking at the struggling Ferrari right now. In 7th position, can he make it into 6th? Gadwin is looking at all of this action as well, with CJ hot on his gearbox. This is a fantastic restart and has provided for some crazy wheel-to-wheel racing here on lap 23. Can't believe it. As Max Inkster in P10, currently less than a second behind P9, and you can just see less than a second gaps all over this grid right now, as Maxim still struggling to get ahead of the Renault in Jack at the moment. Jack still on those mediums, cooking away here in lead of this race. Maxim on the fresher rubber, hopefully able to jump in and take that race lead. And it looks like Max Inkster and Extreme have exchanged positions as the Renault gets out ahead. Jack S going to the inside now on the pit straight. Maxim using that battery just a little bit. No DRS just yet. Jay comes across with the fastest lap of the race so far, and DRS has been enabled.
Yeah, Maxime B just looks so composed right now. He's not going too aggressive at that Renault. He knows he's got the upper hand. He's got to be a little bit mindful of Jay behind him in that Mercedes. He's on the same, sort of tyres, same age, same compound. So towards the end, they'll be towards the similar pace. But Maxime B here, he's not being too aggressive, and that could cost him if
Squid has had enough. He's come together with Skybits, and he's now spun. And he's into the wall trying to recover, getting off the circuit now as he is just being passed by the entirety of this grid on lap 24. Very unfortunate for the Williams, as he looks like he was maybe going for an overtake into turn 9. And it just didn't pan out the way he would have liked, I assume, because he is now very much out of the points for the time being. Of course, there's still a few laps left in this campaign.
Here we go, Maxime B then with DRS. Jack shows him the outside, but Maxime follows him, really aggressive on the inside now. Into turn 1 they go, and Maxime spins! He just gets caught by the Renault there, and then Funky J hits him as well. Only a little bit, just adding to the rotation. Maxime then's down to 8th place. Skybits just now behind the Renault. Funky J gets past the Renault.
And it's Jay in the lead of this race, the Mercedes driver. Of course, it was his teammate on pole position in this one, and now he is leading this race, picking up the gauntlet. Jack S, still on these medium compound tires, looking to go to the end, is starting to lose out some position here to a few of these faster running tire compounds. Of course, Jay is on fresher rubber than the tire graphic suggests at the moment. Of course, we haven't even done 29 laps in this race as of yet, but Skybits in the McLaren doing so well this race as well, as he hasn't been league racing that much recently. He had a very hit and miss performance last season in Tier 1. He's come into Tier 2 to perhaps reignite his passion here, and he's in 3rd position. I'd say he's doing quite well at that. So A2K in 4th position for Ferrari right now. It would always be a major goal for any Ferrari to be on the podium.
Extremes just got past the Red Bull of Gadwin, who's just jumped to the pits, but he was very sideways on the last corner there. Just about saving it.
Meanwhile, Skybits and Jack S wheel to wheel into turn 1. Skybits gets out ahead of him. It looks like they brush together through turn 2, and A2K has taken the Renault for a position as Sensorless, who we saw with a very unique strategy earlier on, jumping onto those softs just ahead of the safety car. Of course, who could have known? But he is now into 5th position after having ran this race for a period.
Yeah, McLaren and Renault both looking pretty strong in terms of points here.
And that's that Ferrari into the podium as well there, Unicorn, as Jack S is struggling on those older medium compound tires versus the soft runners right now. Sensorless will be looking to catch him up quite soon, given the pace difference.
Yeah, and you got to imagine Jack he's got, I don't know about everyone else's penalty situation, but Jack has got a huge collection under his belt. Not only that, he's on these slower mediums. Obviously, the softs are going to start to deteriorate in 1 or 2 laps or so, but there's only 3 laps to go here around Albert Park, and he's not looking good after that restart. He's already dropped to 4th. He was 1st, of course, but then the 2 drivers behind him, Maxime B and Squid, they've also dropped fairly significantly. Sensorless picks up a penalty. Will that affect the end? We don't know. There's so many penalties right now. It's a little bit hard to comprehend.
Yeah, that is right. Of course, with the new game, we do run the league on strict corner cutting rules as a result of regular being perhaps a little too lenient, but strict has been indefinitely increased in its level of strictness, that's for sure, in this game. So the penalties aren't necessarily, I'd say, the fault of the drivers, as much as perhaps being a little unrealistic, but of course they are somewhat consistent, and the drivers will of course adapt over the course of, these next 22 races. Jack S still maintaining a good enough pace to stay out ahead of Sensorless, as A2K looks like he almost may have lost it there on the exit of turn 12.
He certainly lost a lot of time to the Renault behind, but again, those tyres and their pace through the corners seem to be
Crampy having a look at Robbo. He looks to the inside. Robbo shuts the door. Crampy on the medium compound tires, looking to perhaps collect another point for the Haas squad at the moment, as his teammate is currently out of the points contention in P13. But it's as we've been saying for the entirety of this race, Unicorn, penalties have not yet been thrown down by the stewards come race finish. A2K isn't only looking for a podium, though. He's looking for a P2 on the opening race of the season, perhaps to mirror that of Charles Leclerc that we saw earlier in Austria.
Off T1. The Racing Point drops to 11th place. Max as well has dropped to 13th. I don't know what happened to him there, but the yellow flag popped up for just a moment as Robbo rejoins the track. So he's out of the points now. It looks like Racing Point will not be scoring anything here this evening unless something else drastic happens further up the grid. A2K still looking for that second place as he comes out of turn 12. A lot of speed, DRS open, and he flies past the McLaren of Skybits there. Whatever he made the mistake last time round, he's definitely changed up his strategy going through that corner this time. And now he's almost half a second free of the McLaren already, but Skybits, he will get that DRS down the start-finish straight out of the last turn. He seems to have got a good exit. There you go, you can see that rear wing open now. Overtaking Abel, he's pretty much out of battery charge, but as is the Ferrari up the inside. We've just seen Maxime B spin here. Are we going to see the same here? We're not, but we're going to see Skybits left a little bit wide to wheel here down the second DRS straight. You can see Jack S there as well looking for a way past. Skybits spins, and he's been hit by Jack S, but that's actually rectified his spin. He's lost an end plate as a result, but there's Sensorless as well. He's Skybits' teammate. He's now in this battle. A2K, he just got free of that, so he's gained a little bit of time. So they put a little bit of a gap between the cars behind.
This is just
but
wild
Skybits
racing.
is not done yet.
Wild racing coming through there. The two McLarens coming together. Jack S in the mix there. CJ is in the mix as well. There's just a massive train following behind A2K at the moment. It is the Ferrari's race to lose at the moment with all of that traffic behind him. Jay, however, in lead of this race right now, is just heading into turn 13 there, hopefully taking the race win. But there is just so much wheel-to-wheel battling right now. It is CJ looking at Sensorless right now. He is the current closest gap. Of course, Skybits fighting with Jack S. It is just so much action in this midfield right now. Meanwhile, Juicebox is looking at Maxim on the grid. But it is going to be Jay, perhaps, the race winner here at the very least on circuit.
A2K! He's actually just gone into the pit lane after that slide.
Jackass crosses second, but he's going to drop a massive amount in penalties. CJ takes the second position, and it is a podium for Skybits in the McLaren. As what a race finish that was. What a race overall that was. It is Jay, your race winner here for round one of Tier 2. The Australian GP. CJ in second, Skybits in third, and we'll get interviews from those three in just a few moments. Maxim in fourth position, Sensorless in sixth, Crampy in 7th, Jackass in 8th, A2K in 9th, Gadwin in 10th, Juicebox finishing in 11th here. What a race that was. Robbo in 12th, Max Inkster in 13th. Huge race here. And of course, that was only the first of the two races we have for you this evening, the Tier 1 drivers. If I do say so, the quicker drivers that qualified this season coming ahead after these guys. But man, was this ever a debut race for Season 3. I think it's going to be a really tough one to beat for those Tier 1 racers. 2 full safety cars. I believe we had 1 VSC during the race. A few retirements, which is of course to be expected to happen on the first race of the season. Wow. What a race, and congratulations to Jay getting it done for the Mercedes squad. Wow, just I have no words. What a race. CJ in second there for Alpha, and Skybits in third, with Maxim getting another solid position for Alpha in fourth. It's a 2-3 for the Sauber squad. McLaren 3-5, Renault 6-8, and the team points that they're going to get out of this race are going to be quite wild. We'll take a look at the penalties as well. As we mentioned, there's going to be a very, very large amount of penalties in this race as a result of the new strict corner cutting that was implemented with the current game. And it was just a lot of fun to commentate this race. I believe Unicorn getting things dialed in with our interview drivers, which we'll get for you in just a few moments. But before we do that, I just want to say, if you are new, we have another race coming up in just half an hour's time. It is the Tier 1 Racing, and if you haven't already followed, we would greatly appreciate you do so if you are enjoying the racing action. Let's take a look at things over in the Discord. See if anybody is available for interviews.
Do indeed have all three of the podium sitters here.
Very good.
We'll get Funky J in here if Discord would let me.
There we go. All right. So we are here with your race winner for round 1 of Tier 2 action. It is, of course, the Funky JJ. Jay, congratulations.
Hello. Thank you.
How did you find the race, my friend?
That was hard. That was stressful. I don't even know what happened on Tier 1. Just turn 1, not turn 1, lap 1. Just took out into that gravel trap of turn 3. Not have a clue what happened, and I thought it was all over and done with. Got round, pitted onto hards. No safety car for ages and ages and ages. And then the safety car came. I was like, do I pit, don't I? Because I got the hards on and I knew the hards could go to the end. And I had to take a gamble. Each time safety car came out, I had to gamble. So I think I did. Started on the hards, pitted off them, went to mediums again, and then went onto the softs. And I don't know. I don't know how I won. I don't know how I got there. I don't know what happened to get me there. But I am so happy. That was a stressful race. And to start in P12 too. Oh.
Any questions, Unicorn, for our race winner here?
Were you just absolutely sending it through the field? Because not only you just mentioned it there, you started P12, but like you said, off into turn 3, you had to pit lap 1 for repairs. So you're already in, P16, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
How do you get yourself? But obviously, safety cars are going to assist with, closing up the grid. But how was it just getting your way through? How many, on-track overtakes?
Do you know what? I thought I've been so far back. This is now just fun now. This is just fun. Wherever I come. And I was just like, any car, any opportunity. I'm not just going to back off just in case there's an accident or you get your wing taken off. I was just like, no, I'm just going to be right on their gearbox. And if anybody spins, I'll just try and avoid it when I'm that close. And I think that's what helped when I think Maxime went round. Some other guys had some crashes. And normally I would be a couple of car lengths further back. But this time I was like, I've had such a bad start to the race. I was just like, hell for leather, give it all I've got and see what happens.
So in that instance, is that going to change your sort of outlook going forward? When it's under safety cars, are you going to try and be more aggressive from now?
Possibly. I mean, I'm always looking for the sneaky overtake under the safety car. So I don't think that'll change, but I think maybe in races I won't leave so much space and maybe try and take more opportunities when they're there rather than being too far back and wishing I was a bit closer. But obviously the risk of that is you might get into a few more argy-bargies and lose a few more front wings, but it worked out today, so I'm dead pleased.
Very good. Thank you very much, Jay. That's all the time we have, unfortunately, but we are going to get to our other podium finishers as well. We greatly appreciate you jumping in to a call with us. That was a fantastic drive, and well, we can't wait to see what happens in Bahrain. So it's going to be a fun race.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right, our second race finisher here, it is CJ. CJ, or CJOS, whichever you prefer, of course. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was insanely surprised that I jumped so far because of penalties. I didn't expect that at all.
Unicorn?
Well, eighth to second. It's certainly a solid race for you. Just talk us through sort of your strategies prior and then after safety cars, especially with the two safety cars being so close together. How did that help you here this evening?
So what I was going to do originally would be a soft, medium to soft, and then with the safety cars coming out, still did a soft, medium, soft, but it definitely changed when I was thinking stay out on the mediums after that second safety car came out, because you saw how far back I dropped after coming out of the pits, and I thought my race was completely over after that. So it definitely surprised me that the finishing position was that way.
Yeah, and we were saying because you were probably the hardest hit by that double stack when everyone realized, this is the time to go to softs. Was there any doubt? Were you tempted to just stay out, or was it do or die? You had to go for it then.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the double stack that got me. I timed it perfectly. He got out and I got right in, but before I had taken a 5-second penalty during the first safety car with A2K hitting my rear, and then I did a stop and go 5 seconds, and it put me all the way back. So that's where all my places were lost, basically.
Oh, so we didn't see that on stream, but yeah, a hugely impressive race from you. I don't have any more questions, Striff. I'll hand it back to you.
I just want to say congratulations for making the podium ahead of what's going to be a long season. You need as many points as you can get, as all drivers do, and it's just good to start things off with a right foot. We greatly appreciate you taking the time, CJ. Congratulations once again, and we will be looking forward to talking to you, of course, throughout the rest of the season. Now with us is Skybits. Skybits, I gotta say, I'm very happy for you in the most biased way I can, because of course I remember what it was like last time I saw you in a McLaren in Australia, and well, justice, if you will, today.
Just happy with the result. There's a lot of stuff happening. My dogs are barking for me because they're happy. So that race was great. Honestly, a couple of, mistakes that I did. 9 seconds. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, qualifier on the podium, and that sort of lap 25, you benefited greatly when Maxime had that collision into turn one. Just talk us through what that was like, just watching that from behind, seeing that. Was that when you thought, this is it, this is my time to go?
I started screaming in the chat where I started screaming to the race engineers like, we got this, we can get first. And then you see 4 cars trying to battle for first after that happened. Because that was after the second safety car, right? After your lap, yeah. I don't know. I think something happened between him and Jackass there. But spun. I found hope in the podium. I felt like I was going a little bit too slow. Tires were not giving me the pace that I wanted. In the end, yeah, after that, when he spun, yeah, it was just madness after that as well. Everyone was trying to get first. Everyone saw a chance to break open. It was great.
You got most people on those same soft compound tires after that sort of second safety car. The only person out there was Jack S, I think, who was on the mediums. So everyone's sort of on even pace. Was it just a case, did you have fuel and ERS saved up a little bit compared to the guys in front, do you think? And just that was what gave you the advantage towards the end?
It's a little bit of a disadvantage because I had 2+ on the fuel because of the safety cars. And, you can't really waste fuel while you're doing the safety car lap. So we had 2+ fuel. And it did help. I could run it in rich at a couple of times where I was in open air. And that was good and all. But the advantage, honestly, was just making the best of mistakes that were happening around, right? And so I think that's what happened. I just made sure that I raced as cleanly as I could. Make sure not to spin off the track or anything. Had a couple of times where I felt the car lose itself, but overall, I feel like I kept it intact.
Yeah, well, very well done. I think it's a very strong finish from not only you, but also the team as well. I think you're second in the constructors, if my maths are correct, if not third, but still very high up. So a big congratulations.
Definitely a big congratulations to you, Skybits. As always, thank you very much for joining us for the interview. Of course, just like I said to CJ, and I'm sure I'll be seeing a lot of you guys in for interviews over the course of this long and enduring season. It's going to be a good one. And Bahrain next week, I know you're a fan of the circuit, so perhaps we'll be talking again then. But that is all the time we have for you, unfortunately, today. Hopefully, we'll be chatting again soon. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, Unicorn. That race, the amount of overtaking, the amount of action, what a great race that was. That was just so much fun. Of course, everybody, if you came in late, if you're looking to see what happened at the beginning, the full race replay is going to be available on our MRL YouTube channel. And it's going to be host to a lot of highlights as well, circuit guides, things like this. So if you're interested in any of that fun content or to see the race in a highlighted form, that's definitely the place to go ahead and check that out. Of course, Unicorn joining me on commentary today. My name is Strifium. Unicorn, any last words for our viewers before we jump off here?
Well, I said it at the start, just after qualifying. You couldn't predict what was going to happen because we haven't seen these people in, a league environment in this race yet, and I didn't quite realize how right I was going to be. You saw Kai Vicini, Squid, Maxime B. They all looked like they were having a very strong race at the start, and then come the end of it, you got a completely different podium. So, man, it's just one of those races where you couldn't have predicted the outcome, and that's what makes it so great. So, honestly, an excellent start to this season here at MRL, and it makes me very excited to what we're going to see in the coming weeks, especially in the standings as well. Like I said, I love it when points are at stake. So I think we're going to see a nice little jumble for positions in the coming weeks and months as we get further and further into the season.
Most definitely. As always, Unicorn, thank you very much for commentating this race with me. That is going to wrap it up for Tier 2 action in just a few moments. And when I say a few moments, I mean 20 minutes or so. We are going to be live once again with me and Mikyao on the commentary for your Tier 1 division, making their debut for the season here at Albert Park. As always, thank you all for watching. We hope to see you for the next race. It's going to be a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot of action. We will see you then. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please help us out by hitting that like button and consider subscribing for more great racing content.